Welcome to the Dev Banner. This is Eric. Episode 6. We're going to continue on our journey with Prognos. And I'm going to do little things differently tonight. I'm going to show you from a program, running the program point of view of the things that I've made, the changes that I've made, and then we'll go over the code. And this will be hopefully a shorter episode tonight because I've got way more things that I want to go over that I think are going to be a little bit more exciting. But for tonight, we're going to take our transactions that we loaded last time and we're going to give them categories so that we can group those like transactions into groups so that we get a sum for our budget and showing how much we spent in each category. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna start. I've changed into command terminal and I am going to start it and we're gonna run, and this looks pretty familiar, hopefully. One of the things I've changed, so if we go into transactions, we have a new item, and that is list uncategorized. And so if I select you here, and I'm going to select my account, and then so what this is going to do is this is now going to show me all those transactions I loaded last time, and it gives me a date, an amount, and a description. And then it also gives me a list of which categories I can choose from. And also gives you the ability to skip this transaction, or if you want to make a new category and assign that to this this particular transaction. And so if we'll come over here and look at that transaction, we're going to look at the data. And as you can see, this is data number 1. This is record number 1. And since we don't have this as this looks like it's going out to eat, so I'm just going ahead and do new category, and I'm just going to go eating out. And once I press that, it goes on to the next transaction, gives me a new category ID, and it saved that one as 4. So I'm going to go through these. I'm not going to bore you, but I'm going to get the last transaction, then we'll go from there. Okay, so this is my last one, and as you can see, I've created a bunch of other ones, a bunch of other categories: charity, business, entertainment, gifts, and medical. And this one is medical, so I'm just going to select 9, and we are done. So if I was to do this again, I'm going to show you that I skipped one, and by skipping it, you don't give it a category. Now, you could make a category for this, but this is just a payment. We could make an exception to say, hey, if you see auto pay or a payment or whatever, go ahead and skip it. But as a means from a budgeting standpoint, really doesn't fit into this. So you're going to see this come up quite a bit, but I just wanted to show you that's what skip does. Is at the moment it's not complete functionality. This one will just always be available, so it's something we'll probably need to work on. So I'm just going to hit skip it, and I'm going to exit out of that. And so what happens when you load another month's worth of transactions? And let's say that you went to Taco Bell, for instance, which is just a fast food here. And do you always want to have to go in and categorize that? No, you don't. So what I've done is I've created some logic that will take the description and will kind of do a fuzzy match on it, and if it finds a pretty good match, it will assign the category to that transaction. It's not perfect. We'll go over the code, but I wanted to show you the functionality. So we're going to come back in here and we're going to do, and to prove kind of how this works, we're going to come in here and we have 35 transaction. That last one was Wasatch I, View I, and we're going to load this. And it was this file that we've already loaded. So we're going to do this Amex 09 13 2022.csv. And so this was my next month after that first initial load. And I'm just going to go ahead and assign it to my Amex. And then it says file loaded, press enter. And we're going to exit out of that, and we're just come to here for a second. And as you can see, I loaded some more, and it didn't find anything that had anything to do with Olive Garden. Didn't have anything to do with wingers, but you'll see that I went here last month and assigned it as 4. And so you'll see that there's a few of them, like this one was a charity one. I gave them money last month, and Google Cloud was another one, which was business, is number 6. And so you'll see that Taco Bell came up with number 4. And so this fuzzy match went ahead and categorized it based on a category. Now, one of the things that I was going to show you is the account columns, and I added this account. If you remember, per account, I want to know what the columns in each CSV file is, and I'm going to use that to translate, if we remember that a couple episodes ago. And in this case, I added number 4 here, which is category, but I made it position 2, which is same as description. Now, some of your finance companies are going to give you a category of their own. You could use that. It might not match yours, but you can write the functionality that does that. But in this case, I took, since we didn't have, in this particular case, this particular institution didn't give me a category, so I'm using the description and doing this fuzzy match. So that's how that's working. So if we come over here to records, coming back to that, and I'm going to look at the transactions. One of the things I've added was in the list and looking up and getting one, I added this column called category, added the number and what it is, just so that you can see it. And that is pretty much the extent of what changes from the UI standpoint happened in this episode. So let's go to the code. So I'm gonna go ahead and exit out of that and kind of close this down, and we'll kind of look at some of the code and what I've done. I'm not going to show you everything in the code. You can always go and look at a diff between episode 5 and episode 6, but I wanted to show you one of the features that if you set this up with Git, which if you're pulling it from my repo out on Black Flag Software, then you're going to get this automatically. So if we click on here, you're going to see some of the things that have changed. And like in the data folder, I added this test data file. But I want to come into the code and kind of just go over some of the things that we've changed. Now you'll see an M here. That means that you've modified it since the last time it was committed. And a U is considered untracked, and that means it's new. So if we come in here, let's go look at in the terminal, some of the things that we've changed from a UI standpoint. We're going to come look at transactions, And you'll see that these are what was from episode 6, the last commit to what it is. And this is my categorized portion of new, and this is green. You'll see sometimes red here, which means that it was deleted, versus green, which was added. And you'll see that this was the whole. Let me make this a little bit smaller so that you can see more. You'll see that this is the UI where I print out the transaction, print the skip, and the new. And then this is the whole kind of looping system that I go in and I check to see if the category is there. If not, I create it, and then I append it and I push it to the file. And that's kind of, you saw that, right? You saw how every time I made a choice in category, whether it's a new or existing, it went and saved that. That's where this was done. So this code, and I'll say right now that this was I made this a to-do, kind of something to work on. That this loop makes it really long, and so from an engineering standpoint, you want to make your loops so that you can kind of see what's going on in one given, view of what you can see. And so you can understand the logic in one kind of fell swoop. This one's a little too big, and it actually has quite a bit of continuing and breaking. And in Go, a continue, I think if you read over my loops, a continue is to, hey, go up and continue on this for loop and skip all this stuff. Break means I want to get out of this loop. One of the things I wanted to show you was this is a loop tag, and if you put it in front of a loop, then you can continue on this loop tag, or you can actually, do I break? There's another continue on the loop tag, and you can also break on the loop tag, which means even though it's in an inner loop, I'm going to continue and I'm going to come back way up here and I'm going to go back to this loop. Or if I broke, then it would break out of this loop and out of this loop and then go on if there was more logic back down here. So that's kind of a new thing. And it kind of is spaghetti code. That's why I was like, if anybody knows that term, to-dos or go-to in old code, there was a lot of go-tos, meaning that you'd go to a line, and then if you ever changed it, then you'd have to go change the line, and that's what they called spaghetti code. And this kind of gets into there, and so you got to kind of be careful with these loops. And I'm not going to refactor this even for the next episode. I'm kind of going to keep it here. It's really ugly, I know it, but I really want to go on to more to move this project on. So we'll probably leave that. But if you really want to make it better and make it a little bit more, refactor it, by all means. So that is the UI. And the other UIs is just adding the column where needed, as you're looking at stuff through the through the UI. We'll come down here. You'll see that I changed it and added category and added where it needs to be and stuff like that. So let's see. If you come over here to entities, I think some of the major things I did was in account transactions, I added some logic for the category and defined it. So this is the logic where you're saying, hey, go give me all the category transactions, uncategorized. This is logic. This is a new file, new section in this file. Check and create. This is another to-do list, not efficient. So sometimes when I go through and I'm coding, I'll get to something and I'll put myself a to-do list, and then I go find all my to-dos, and it's kind of like work on it. So the idea is to put out something, make sure it works, and then to come back and make it more efficient and maybe refactor. That's the kind of my workflow as I go through and code. The new is this transaction history, which is this file right here. And the transaction history, if you come over into Prognos data, I added a new file to show you this is how the fuzzy match works. Now, this is not the most efficient. All I'm doing is I'm making a map here, a key value, an array of key values basically, and I'm saying, hey, these are all the descriptions, and what column or category I'm assigning when I assign that, when it first comes through as then categorized. And then when it comes back through, every time I go to load up a category, or a transaction from a file, I'll look at the description, come through this list and go through all of these and do a fuzzy match. And if that fuzzy match matches, then I assign the category. If it not, then it goes into the uncategorized list, and then you can add a category to it. So for instance, if we come back over here to transactions, and we come back at the top of the list, Olive Garden, which is another restaurant, I can go and say, okay, well, that's a restaurant. You give it number 4, eating out, and then you go on, and then if you go have 6 months down the line, if you go to Olive Garden again, it should give it the category, and we're done. Now, like I said, it's not super efficient, but that's where it's done. And so if you come look at the find category function within the transaction history, the logic that's in managers, that's where all the business logic is. This is where I'm doing the fuzzy, and this fuzzy search is by this LitHammer package that I'm using, and you go read it if you're interested in it. I like it, and this particular rank match is if it finds this, if it finds it and it's spot on, then it will give it a rank 0, and then you can assign the category. So I'm going over every transaction history. So if I come over here to transaction history again and pull this up, this list is this list right here. And if it doesn't find it, so it doesn't come into here, this if statement, then I go and I grab all of just these guys right here, and I'm putting them into this list of keys, and then I'm actually splitting them, and then I'm going through and I'm doing this rank find fold, case insensitive, and if the rank is higher than 0, then I go and I grab the target, and that gives me the category ID. So the rank 0 target is actually this full description right here, and I go and I say, okay, now I have the key of this transaction history map, give me the ID. And I spelled out a kind of like, some what I'm doing, not, or why I'm doing it, not necessarily what I'm doing. Those are better comments. And some of these are kind of what I'm doing, but hopefully that in time you'll see that if you make your comments of not what you're doing, but why you're doing it, will helpful to you like 6 months later that you're like, why did I do this? And your comments will say it. Or if somebody actually gets your code and has to work on it, they'll see why you're doing it instead of what you're doing. So one of the reasons why I like about Go is it's pretty descriptive, and the code itself can help you as long as you stick to the basics of Go. Because I've seen some things, and I've had some things that even after 3 or 4 months of going back into my code saying, what am I doing here? And I have to read it over again. So stick with the basics, and you'll have better maintenance over time. So that in a nutshell is basically everything I wanted to show you. I'm going to get this out to up to get, as I said, the episode 6 to do versus the episode 6 done will probably be the same. I probably won't add anything to it. And then looking forward, we're going to do budgeting next time. And then after that, we're going to look at options of storage. And those are the things I want to get to. So this was really quick compared to my other ones. Thanks for joining. See you next time. Please subscribe to the channel and make sure notifications are turned on.